philosophical hermeneutics, the position of Paul Ricoeur, we had said masters of suspicion and the purpose of the masters of suspicion. So, to give a general conclusion, I would say that hermeneutics today is a developed science, very important science, and we as not only as seminarians, but we as people who are educated people must be aware that hermeneutics is so important. Today's world is moving only because of hermeneutics. It all depends on interpretation, how we interpret things. So we must be very clear. Everything is interpreted. You see the news, you start interpreting. He means this, he means this, he means that. You are hearing a homily, people are interpreting. You make a speech, you are interpreting. You meet your bishop and he tells you something, you begin to interpret. So everything is a process of interpretation. Human life itself is an interpretation. So you cannot ignore this topic and say today it's very important. And today's modern world, you realize that earlier the social communication was very poor. Social media was not there. Today social media is there. So everybody is taking a clipping and see yesterday somebody made a news saying that the Pope has given permission for this one gays to have legal marriage. See, all the papers are today published. But where did the Pope say? What was the meaning the Pope said? What exactly the Pope said? In which context did he say? Nobody is asking. Papers will carry the headlines. Pope is for this. You see, today's many of the papers headlines is this. Now, who on earth, where on earth, why on earth, what was the exact word used, what was the statement, what is the meaning of that statement, what did he really mean? People are not ready. So you see the media today, they carry a headline. You see the media today, you make a full speech, you are making a speech, and in between the speech, you make a sentence. In between the speech, you make a sentence. And you cut that sentence and you publish the sentence. The one part of the speech and the next part of the speech is not there. You are cutting only a short, this one sentence of maybe 20 seconds. And he said, he said it, man. Who said it? He said it. Baba, he said it, but his sentence is not complete. If I say, you are scoundrels, if I say that, but if I am in the process of somebody said that you are scoundrels and that should not have been used, the word is very bad, and therefore whoever has used the word you are scoundrels is not right. See, I am in the process of saying things. But if you stop at me and say, you are scoundrels, Father Joseph Martin said, we are scoundrels. You see the cutting. Do you follow me?
Yes, Father.
You follow me now?
Yes,
So you
Father.
see how today's world is so much because of this media has done so good naturally, but media also has destroyed things. Media also has deformed things, and people are interpreting in the way they like. Why do I interpret in the way I like? Because my context is that, because my situation. So should I interpret that way? Not at all. I must be careful. I must be watchful. I must be ready to listen. So that's why when we interpret, for example, especially we interpret sacred text, Bible text, Jesus makes a statements. Very often we are coming across these days the problem of interpretation. Somebody says Jesus had brothers and sisters. So people say that Jesus also had other brothers and sisters. How do they interpret that? So people will come and tell you. So that's the reason I told you other day when we interpret a text like Bible, literally interpretation when we give a spiritual interpretation is fine. As long as it helps us to pray, as long as it helps us to meditate, it's fine. But when you are giving a textual interpretation, literal interpretation, we should be extremely careful because what exactly is the meaning of the word brother? What exactly is the meaning of the word sister? What was the original word used? What was the original context in which it was used? These are all issues very important. We cannot ignore these issues. Therefore, hermeneutics is a science which is very important. And therefore, as educated people we cannot be simply swayed by these ideas. We should see the context. We should see the original expression. We should see the original language. If I do not know, I must consult people. I should not make random statements. I should not make a priori judgments. A priori judgments with judgments without knowing what reality is. Therefore, we have to, this hermeneutics is a very important science. And we are not just talking about hermeneutics in general, we also spoke about philosophical hermeneutics. Now, philosophical hermeneutics, the basic problem is not just interpretation of a meaning of the word. Philosophical hermeneutics concern is not just to interpret the meaning of a sentence. That is general hermeneutics. Now, philosophical hermeneutics into consideration the foundation of very interpretation. And the foundation of very interpretation is our life itself. The whole human life itself is nothing but an interpretation. So philosophical hermeneutics take into account not just interpreting a statement, interpreting a book, interpreting the meaning of the word. That is not the only purpose of philosophy, philosophical hermeneutics. That is general hermeneutics. But philosophical hermeneutics is concerned more about life, more about aspects of life, interpreting the meaning of life itself. So it goes deeper into the language itself. Why language at all? What is the meaning of language? So it goes into the base of the human reality, the foundations of human reality. So we have to interpret the human person, human reality. And in various ways, we have seen some of the philosophers have made an attempt. So you see, this philosophical hermeneutics goes beyond just the use of words, linguistic, grammatical aspects. They're all required, but philosophical hermeneutics goes deeper. So you see, I have not dealt many things, but a few things, but we are able to understand the significance of the science called hermeneutics. Hermeneutics, very especially when it comes to sacred texts, hermeneutics in our context today, social media, very important, and hermeneutics for us as students of philosophy, philosophical hermeneutics, which touches the core of our life, core of our existence. Any questions so far? Am I clear?
Yes, Father.
Father.
So I suppose I am clear, and that is
Yes,
the
Father.
this one. We will have to so that is regarding. So we have dealt with the one important subject, phenomenology and hermeneutics. So I said phenomenology is nothing but a logos of the phenomena. It is the science of phenomena, and phenomena means that which appears. And appearance, I said right from the beginning, I'm repeating again and again. Appearance is not only to the eyes, appearing to my life itself. So phenomenology is trying to understand how I experience the reality, how I see the reality from within, not just through my eyes, how I see the reality from within me, how do I experience the reality. So phenomenology is a science which tries to know the reality from within. It touches my mind, my heart, my feelings, my emotions, my intellect, everything it touches. So phenomenology we have seen, and how science of interpretation touches this reality. So every experience that I have of the phenomena or the reality or the truth is nothing but an interpretation of it. How do I interpret that? An expression, how do I express it? So both these aspects are linked together, and we have seen the position of different philosophers. Some philosophers have come twice, like Heidegger, like Paul Ricoeur, in both areas we saw. And how this science is a very recent science, but a very important science, and how it is so significant that we live in a time where we have to approach the reality, not just from the mind alone, but from itself, how it allows itself to appear to me. How do I experience that reality? So I have done that, and I have sent you the notes. You'll have to read it, and you'll have to be very clear about the basic concepts. Basic concepts have to be very clear. So it should be very clear and crystal clear about the basic concepts. So once the basic concepts are clear, things are done. Then we also have done existentialism. There it was not that difficult. So those who would like to answer their exams on these two subjects, you are also welcome. But don't be in a hurry that you want to finish the exam. If you want just to finish the exam, it is useless. You will have to. I will send you back saying that you cannot. Then I will not give you a chance to answer that exam same evening. Father, I forgot now. I will come little later. No, you finished your chance. Now re-exam will be some other day. So let us be very clear. So don't say that, Father, I just missed and therefore I this one. Now give me another day. Give me another. So 10 o'clock I will come at 11. No, you can't come at 11. So you will have to find another date, maybe later, up 1 week or 2 weeks. You'll have to find another date. So don't be in a hurry. Don't say that let me finish and wash my hands. No, I would like to be free afterwards. No. The purpose is that you study well, capture the basic notions, and let us be clear. It's not just the sake of clearance of the exam, but it's making things very clear. So I think let us. So those would like to. The other pending exams of the last year, once again, same thing holds good. So we have seen some of you had asked me some questions regarding metaphysics. I had explained to you the other day something about analogy. And then somebody said, what about the question of act and potency, substance and existence, substance and accidents, essence and existence? So all they have their root. So I'm just give you a few, one or two hints on this. Somebody had asked me. So we had seen in the first part of the metaphysics, we had seen the basic notion, basic concept, and the concept is the concept of being. So that is our whole concern. Ontology is nothing but a science of being. So in the first part, there is what is being. Being is that which exists. Whatever exists is called being. Whichever may be the way it exists. Some exist materially, some exist biologically, some exist intellectually, some exist only in the mind, logically. Some are material beings, some are spiritual beings. So when any being for that matter is studied. So that is the first part. Then we saw that being, what are the salient features of being? So being, we said that being cannot be defined. Being is a general term. Being is that refers to all that exists. Then we saw that a strict definition of being cannot be given. We have given reasons why a strict definition cannot be given. Then we saw the transcendental properties of being. What are the inner components of being? Being is always one, united. Being is always true, it can be known. Being is always good because every being, when it has its own nature, it creates an attraction. Being is beautiful. We saw that. So these are internal components of being. Then we saw that being has this one. What is that? Where do we? Which the concept of being? Where can we put it? Because there are different types of concepts or terms. There is a univocal term, equivocal term, analogical term. So being, where to put it? Neither equivocal nor univocal, but it's an analogous term. In analogy itself, there are various types of analogies. There is analogy of attribution, metaphorical analogy, and analogy of proportionality. So it is not of attribution. It is cannot be equivocal and the metaphorical analogy of metaphoric. It is analogy of attribution and the analogy of proportionality. So it belongs to the category of the analogy of proportionality. So these are all the outside part of the being. These are all the peripheries of being. So we are trying to understand the notion or the concept of being, and we see that being means it is one. Being is an analogical term. Being is belonging to the analogy of proportionality. Being is one. Being is true. Being is good. Being is beautiful. So a sort of an outer layer of being. If you have a circle, if you have imagine a circle, and inside the circle you put being, inside the circle you put being. So the outermost circle of the being would be all this, whatever I said so far. The largest circle of the being would be all that I said, the outer circle of the being. Now you are coming inside the being. You are coming into the inside of the being. And inside of the being, you have small circles, different circles. You are entering into the being. So far, you are on the periphery of the being. So far, you are in the periphery of the being. Now, you are entering inside the being. And here there are different circles. And the first circle we saw was that the structure of the being, how being is structured, how it is constructed, how it is made from within. And that leads us to the question of significant theories about being. And the most significant theory of being is the theory of act and potency. Now, the theory of act and potency has different ways of expression. Theory of act and potency is expressed in its activity through substance and accidents. In its very existence, it is expressed through essence and existence. So essence and existence, substance and accidents are the different forms of the theory of act and potency. So major part is theory of act and potency is the internal structure of being is constructed through the theory of act and potency. How does this theory of act and potency work? In its activity, it works through substance and accidents. In its very nature, it works through essence and existence. So we'll have to clarify the term. What is this act and potency? Why this theory came at all? So that is what you find in that is the major part. Then an explanation of what an act and potency is and how this act and potency is realized in essence and existence, substance and action. So I said the very first question is why did this theory of act and potency come about at all? So we came back to the old problem. The problem Greeks had certain philosophical problems, not any problem. They had certain philosophical problems. So what was the philosophical problem? Do things change or they don't change? That was the philosophical problem. Do they change or they don't change? So people belonging to two schools of thought. One was the school of thought belonging to Parmenides. Another was the school of thought belonging to Heraclitus. They belong to two different schools, two different philosophical schools, two different ideological schools. The philosophical school which Parmenides belonged came to the conclusion saying that there cannot be change. Why did they come to that conclusion? Why did Parmenides come to that conclusion at all? Why there cannot be change at all? Why that conclusion? Is he a mad fellow? No, he has an argument. What is the argument he gives? He says that suppose we say change has things such as water has changed into ice. Suppose, example, he is asking the question. The new item, change means what? Something which is new has come. No? Something which was not there has come. That is called change. Something which was not there, it has come now. So Harmony is asking question that something which was not there, it has come now, new. This new thing which has come, has it come totally from outside or was it already inside? Has it come totally from inside or from outside? In simple words, he is asking the question or philosopher, is it coming from being or non-being? Is it coming from non-being or being? Suppose you say that it has come from inside, it is coming from being itself. The new thing which has come is coming from inside or it is coming from being itself. Then it says it was there already. No. Only thing you have not seen perhaps, but it was there no inside, it was there already. If it was there already inside, it's not a change. It is not a change. But you say take the other position. No, it has not come from being, it has come from non-being, it has come from outside. He argues once again. From outside, how can something come? From non-being, being cannot come, no. From non-being, a being cannot come into existence. Being is being, non-being is non-being. How can non-being bring being? So, in other words, it cannot come from non-being, it cannot come from outside. If it has come from inside, it is already there. So, it is nothing new. So, what is the conclusion? Conclusion is there is nothing called change at all. Change is only an imagination of your mind. It is a fiction of your mind. It's only you imagine that there is a change. In reality, there is no change. So he's talking about a sort of a monism. stagnant monism.
Static.
Monism is same thing.
Static.
So you go back to the read after this. He's talking about monism. Monism is there is no change. So that is one school of thought. What exists? Only being exists, nothing else. So that was the position of our friend Hermeneutics. The position of our friend Heraclitus is different. He belonged to another school. He did not belong to the same school philosophy, another. Now, according to Heraclitus and that school, he says, is there a being at all? He is asking the question, is there a being at all? Being means what? That which is there all the time. Being means what? That which is there all the time. It exists all the time. He says, there is no being at all. I have never seen a being which exists all the time. There is no being at all. What exists? What exists is a continual change. What exists is continual change exists. So, in other words, in philosophical words, he says, there is no such a thing called being at all. What exists is only becoming. What exists is only becoming. There is no being. Being is only an imagination of your mind that everything is same. No, it's only an imagination. What really exists is becoming. What exists is continuously changing. There is no being. It continuously changes. There is no being. It keeps on changing. Keeps on changing. It's a continuous change. So he says, and he gives the example. And he gives the what example he says? He says, take the example of a flowing water, flowing river. What do you see there? You see there no stagnant river. The water is what is happening to the water. Water is keeping on moving. You can't catch once the water, say that I will catch this water. By the time you go there, new water has come. That's why he says you cannot step into the same river twice. Why? Because the moment you step, first time, okay. Next time when you step, you are stepping into different waters. He gives an imagery there. He gives only an example. So what exists is not being. What exists is only becoming. What exists is not something which is stable. What exists is only that which is changing. So you see, two opposite positions. So the question is, do things change? According to Parmenides, never. It's a contradiction to say changing. According to Heraclitus, yes, everything is changing. If you say that nothing is changing, he says that is also a contradiction. So both are, he is talking about dynamic monism. Dynamic means what? The meaning of the word dynamic. Dynamic is that which is moving. It is changing continuously, keeping on moving. That's called dynamic. Somebody who is dynamic, a person who is dynamic is one. A person who is dynamic is a person who is always in activity, moving. Keeps on moving activity. So it's called dynamic monism. Static monism, never changing. Here it is dynamic. So these were the two opposing principles or positions. To settle them right as a sort of an intermediary between these two positions. Aristotle reads Parmenides, he reads also Heraclitus. And he says, Parmenides is also right that yes, from non-being, being cannot come. It's very clear. From nothing, something will not come. From non-being, being cannot come. Very clear. He is also says, Heraclitus also is right. Because we see things are changing. Everything is continuously in a movement. That also is true. So what is the problem? He said, both are right and both are wrong. Why they are right? Because from non-being, something cannot come. At the same time, it is true also that things are keeping on changing. That is true. So what is the solution? He says, both have seen reality from two different perspectives. Both have seen reality from two different perspectives. We have to see the reality from one perspective. Being is not two beings. Being is always one. But being has two principles. Being has to be seen from two principles. Being has to be seen from two principles. And there are two principles in being. A principle which makes the being change, and a principle which does not allow the beings to change. I think the time is very limited. We'll come back. We'll come back for another 10 minutes most probably because I have to go out after that. So we'll come back after, as long as it cuts, we'll join the meeting again. So being has to be seen from two angles. We are not seeing being two beings. Being is only one. But we have to see it from two dimensions, two angles, 2 points of view. One point of view is it is the same being. Yes, it is the same being. Another point of view, it is the same being, but it is changing. So being has to be seen from two principles. One is called the principle of change. Another is called the principle of non-change. In other words,
Okay, I will. Okay.
in other words, there is a principle of change